was talking to Mike Tomlin, and he said one of the hardest things to transition from a position coach to a coordinator and then a head coach is really kind of mapping out where you go during practice. You want to have a plan. So I always kind of took that advice, and I look at the practice schedule, I looked at the script, who's working on what fundamentals. A lot of times that has to do with what we did the day before. So I'm looking for some improvement and some different points of emphasis there. And then I know that sometimes when I go to an individual drill, it's going to intensify a little bit if I'm there. So I'm always looking at the schedule and what we need to work on that day, and then I'll map out what periods I go with. Jobs for guys in that sense is really important to kind of give them an opportunity to go learn and put themselves on the field. Caleb is such a versatile player that now you can do that. You can move him into some different spots to give those other guys a chance to get on the field in those roles. So I feel like that room is really working. I feel like there's some good young guys there that have an opportunity to kind of step up and contribute. So having that piece and moving that around is good for us to be able to evaluate those guys to see if we can, through the course of the season, do that.
What do you like about Caleb at that? What does he bring to that?
CJ. You name it.
Yeah, you can never have enough pass rush. I think that's, always a great theory as a defensive coach, and certainly the best coverage is pass rush. We want to get there as much as we can. So those guys have some position flex too. They can move into different alignments, and I think the more of those guys you can get on the field, the faster you can become in the pass rush game. Certainly down and distance and situation will dictate some of that, but I think just having players like that can go inside, outside, maybe line up in some different alignments, really make every offensive lineman that we play against prepare for you. That's, I think, always harder during the course of the week, of a game week, rather than you're always in one spot all the time. It just kind of depends on each player, but we have some versatility there.
Coordinated defense from last year. And I'm not looking for top secrets and all that kind of stuff, but how would you describe to somebody, like if you go to a lunch and they want what's going to be different about your defense, how would you explain it?
Yeah, it's a really great question. Obviously not firsthand being in the building last year, but look, we have great coaches that are here, that were here last year, and I think it's my job to really kind of make sure I'm adapting and learning to what we did really well last year, because obviously it was great, and we have great coaches that coach these guys really well and develop these players at a high level. So I think from that standpoint, there'll be some things that are very similar to what everybody's used to. I maybe teach a little bit differently. That's probably the only, I can't really speak on it. I just teach the way that I do. It's more conceptually and big picture and things like that, which gives us a little bit more position flex and multiplicity from that standpoint to put guys in different roles. So maybe that's it.
But coming from the NFL, you're kind of a matchup guy, to a certain extent, right?
Yeah, that was the biggest lesson I learned, I think, when I went to the NFL from college, was just how much it was to me. I used to say it was more like the NBA than it was anything else. Matchups and all that stuff is really important. That's definitely important. If you're going to go play against JJ, you better know where he's lined up every single play. So some of that still carries over. But right now for us, it's just about how do we improve fundamentally? How do we get a lot of young players? We lost a lot of really experienced veteran leadership guys last year that are, in training camps right now. So how do we get these young guys who are super talented up to speed, get them the reps they need so they have that game-like experience? We have great guys here. The players here they're just great young men, so you can't help but gravitate to them. And, as a coach, that's my role, right? I want to, mentor and coach and help develop young men, 18 to 22-year-old men in those stages of not only football but life. So it's a true joy for me just to be around them. They have that energy, they have that youthfulness about them. They're very into the game of football, which I love, so they want to learn. I love to teach it, and just being able to be in that situation where I can help them outside of the game is really important to me. I think I've said to a lot of them, look, I have kids now that look up to them, so it's my job to be able to do everything I can to help them be the best versions of themselves. So that's what, my kids are looking up to. Yeah, a lot, watched a lot of film, and really started that process last year, with kind of a unique year for me. Last year I watched a lot of NFL and a lot of college tape just for that reason. I think even if you're in the NFL, the matriculation of the players coming in, the game has changed. There is a lot more influence. There always is college influence in the NFL. And look, you're trying to play to the strengths of the guys that you get in the NFL, and they're coming from college. So what do they do well? And you want to study that. But being in this environment, obviously, we're watching that all the time, and we're taking a look at the tape of what is trending, what is, what do you have to be ready for. The biggest thing for me is really the differences, right? I think that's one of the biggest keys for me to study and make sure that I'm paying attention with the hash marks, just simple things like that, but formationally, some of the rules that are different. And then, you take the rules and then you coach from the rules. So how are we coaching everything and making sure that it matches up with how it's going to be officiated on the field?
Is the biggest difference the hash marks and the space?
That's a big one. It is a really big one. There's some formation and things that are a little bit different too, I would say, because of the hash marks, but being able to have some of those unbalanced looks and some of those unique sort of formations, I think are just different. And then just, whether it's the nuances in the rules, right, where we're allowed to jam and reroute and where we can't is a little bit different. I'm a little bit excited about what we can do. So those are the main ones. Yeah, I never really appreciated those preseason games in the NFL, but right now I'm wishing we had one. I think, we would say it all the time, like everybody needs preseason, everyone needs training camp, and certainly game day operation I think is one that is really important, and I thought that was great to be able to do that in the NFL. We got to hit the ground running when we get to week one and make sure that as a coaching staff, we're on point. We have good communication, whether it's from upstairs to downstairs, being able to see what's on the field, even just simple things like substitutions and packages going in and out and people being in the right spot. So we have to simulate that as we go through training camp to make sure, look, our guys are great. They've done it before. It's probably more me nervous than anything. I'm the one that's got to adjust and change. So I think they'll be fine. I'll be the one that'll be trying to figure it out. It's a great question. For me, I think last year, a couple things. One, it was really going back to, I got into coaching for a reason. I left engineering to get into coaching because I just really wanted to teach and mentor, and how important my coaches were, especially in college. My college coaches were to just growing up, and being a young adult, a young man trying to figure it out. And so it was really a way to kind of give back. I wanted to give back and I wanted to help people. I just really wanted to help people and teach. Came from that background with my parents and stuff. So I think I had a good opportunity to kind of sit back and be like, hey, I got to get back to just, getting the joy of being a great teacher and a great mentor and those relationships. And so that was a big thing for me. That was really important. And that's what a lot of it drew me back to the college game, to being around, guys of that age, and that be able to have that influence. I will tell you that also last year doing media, I have a much better appreciation for how difficult the job is for all of you in the media to, do what you guys do every single day. Like that's not natural for me, but the work that everyone puts into it from the media standpoint and to get the message out to the fans, right? And to be that connection between the coaches and the team and the fans, and to really also have that football mind, right? Where you're diving into the game and you're taking a look at schematics and scheme, and all of that is to me, that is an incredibly difficult job. And I would say I have a huge appreciation for that.
Players